Don't just let life and your job just happen to you. Rediscover what you want to do, what your intentions are, and find a way to bring them into being, into your work, into your life. I use the word agency a lot with Timeboxing. It's taking back your agency. You be in control. Don't let the world happen to you. You decide what needs to happen, when it's going to happen, and get it done. Giving yourself the space to think through what is most important. And then when is deciding when it should start and when it should finish, not being too ambitious, but being ambitious enough with those timings. One of the productive things might well be having a break, taking your dog for a walk. It's just positive, intentional activities that by the end of the day, and even actually during the day, are going to be really good for you.
That's Marc Zao-Sanders. He's an expert on living an intentional life whose frameworks have helped leaders and people across the globe take back control of their time. Marc practices time boxing all the time, and his new book shares principles of focused productivity to help you focus on doing the right things at the right time. So you'll learn 1, how to prune your to-do list effectively. 2, how to use time boxing to plan your day with intention. And 3, the art of choosing breaks. And if you want a quick summary write-up of these actionable takeaways, I recommend you sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter found at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Mikaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Marc. Marc, welcome.
Pete, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to chat. And let's kick it off. I know you have studied productivity, done many experiments, worked it, iterated it. Could you share with us your most surprising discovery you've made about us humans and being productive so far?
Most surprising. I mean, maybe it's just the simple fact that managing your time is so very important, and yet it doesn't get much attention from the public in general, from people at work. If you think about managing time, because time governs everything else, you can adopt a new habit and it might be really good for you. Let's say it's exercise or it's breathing or it's meditation or whatever. But if you can adopt an exercise, a practice, which is using your time better, then that's all of the above and many thousands of other things. So I find it surprising that although time management is a thing, if you ask people on the street, what are their systems for managing time? They haven't thought about it all that much. And yet that is the entirety of our existence, of our conscious experience of life.
Oh, yeah. Starting off light, our existence and conscious experience of life.
Straight into philosophy.
That's good. Well, yeah, I think that does ring true. We had Demir Bentley on the show who wrote a book called Winning the Week. And he said that this is indeed a theme he has observed amongst many of his high-performing clients, is that they all agree, oh, yes, planning the week is one of the most important things I could possibly do. And yes, they don't, but they don't do it. And so almost universally is the observation there. So share with us, what are we missing? Why aren't we doing it? Are we just oblivious to the true benefit? Do we think it's kind of a nice to have? We haven't really seen the light, experienced it firsthand. Why are we dragging our feet here?
I think probably the main reason is just that life gets in the way. There are so many emails in your inbox. There are tasks to do in a task management system or communications in Slack or Teams or whatever it is, our mobile phones now as well. So there are just so many reasons to not carve out some time for yourself and think about how to spend it well. We're just hugely distracted. So I'd say that's a big thing with it. And I think also with any habit, you need to persevere with it a little bit to feel the benefits. And I think, people need to get past that, first day or 2 days to see the benefits of time boxing or indeed, another time management technique. Yeah, I think that's it. And it's a shame because I think if we all lived more intentional lives, we would be happier. We would be more productive. We would get on better with each other. We'd be better human beings.
Okay. Well, could you maybe paint a picture for us in terms of an inspiring story of somebody who did just that? They weren't bothering with the time boxing approach, and then they adopted it, and what happened for them?
Well, I mean, one such person is me. It has worked for me as an individual. And that's the key thing, I think, for anyone listening to this. You need to think, does it work for you? as an individual. There are studies, there's all sorts of science that says that this works. But the key thing really is not whether it works for, a bunch of other people, it's whether it works for you. So, I mean, my personal story is that, I'm 45 years old, about to be 46. And when I started my career 20 something years ago, life was hard. I started in strategy consulting and the pressure was pretty intense. I was suffering, frankly. I was a disorganized mess. Yeah, the performance issues. But more importantly, I wasn't feeling very good about the work that I was doing. So I established a little bit of control by setting up what I called a daily work plan. So that was just an Excel file. I'd write in the Excel file, these are the things I really need to do today. This is roughly how long they would take. And I'd check them off. They would sum up then to the productive hours that I'd had that day. That was good. That was much better. And it made me feel better about work, more confident with what I was doing. But it didn't tell me at any given moment what I should be doing. It wasn't linked to other meetings, to my calendar. So then, I saw this article in Harvard Business Review. It's called Why To-Do Lists Don't Work, and it immediately resonated. I changed what I was doing as an individual overnight. And then over the next 5 years, I sort of honed the technique. I made it my own. I wrote my own Harvard Business Review article that became very popular, and that led to the book, and talking to many, many people over the years about time boxing and how it can help not just with it's really not just about your productivity. It's really mostly about how you feel, the control that you feel as you go through the day, as you're going through the maelstrom of a knowledge worker's day. It can be unpleasant a lot of the time, but if you focus on one thing at a time and you've planned that out, it feels a lot better. So the case study I would give most of all, first and foremost, that I know and have lived is mine. But obviously I've heard that kind of story from many, many people literally from around the world. That's, just one other thing to say about that the book's been, and I'm an unknown author. I was an unknown author before I started this. And yet the rights were brought up in 33 languages because this idea of making your life more intentional through your digital calendar resonated, across cultures, across languages. And there's also a bunch of case studies at the end of the book as well, stories from individuals that have made time boxing work for them in their specific situations too.
Okay. Well, so that's cool. Works for you, works for them. I actually am curious to hear about the studies. And in fact, in your Harvard Business Review article at the very top, it says a recent survey of 100 productivity hacks, Timeboxing was ranked the number one most useful. Tell us a bit about that and any other, research or evidence saying this isn't just a cool thing Marc likes doing. It's pretty proven for lots of folks.
So that study was done a long, long time ago. I did a lot of the research for it, but this is well before I'd written the book or even had an idea about writing the book. I had literally no affiliation with time boxing. I happened to do it myself, but actually a lot of the other techniques on the list, I also happened to do. So the way that we conducted that study was to look at lots and lots of thought leadership pieces online and categorize them according to, which time management technique, which productivity hack or tip they were. And then just see how common they were. And that gave rise to an ordering, a top 100. And like you say, time boxing came top.
So came top by votes or by most frequently cited in this research?
No, exactly. Most frequently cited. So how many times they were coming up. But it's not only that. If you look at a lot of the other entries on that list, and like you say, it's linked to in the book and probably on some articles on my site, you can see that many of the other techniques on the list are very, very similar to time boxing, or actually they form a subset of time boxing. I'll give you an example. Just saying no. So just saying no is a thing in business. It's been encouraged a lot over the last 10 years. By the way, I think this is more of a nuanced thing. Sometimes people should say yes more than they do. It depends on the person and the context, but sometimes they should say no. Well, saying no is partly dependent on how busy you are and what you've got on. If you time box, you're not just saying no or just saying yes. You're doing so on the basis of what you've got on your plate. It's something that you can point to your boss to, or point colleagues to. So just saying no it goes very, very nicely hand in hand with time boxing, just like so many of the other items on the list. I'll give you just one other example as well. eat that frog, the Brian Tracy idea of, do the most difficult thing at the start of the day. Well, again, it's not like time boxing is saying you should do the most difficult thing, but if it suits you as a person, then here's a system where you can put the most difficult thing at the start of the day in just, completely consistently, and to support that system that Brian Tracy came up with or popularized. But also if you're the opposite, if you're someone who needs to slowly build momentum through the day, then start with some smaller tasks, which suit certain people better than it does the Brian Tracy method. That's also consistent with time boxing, because here's a system where you can build up slowly with some easier, smaller tasks at the start. So my point is that, time boxing is very flexible with you as number one itself. It also works so nicely with virtually every other time management technique.
Okay. Well, so then we say the word time boxing a lot. Can you lay it on us? What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, I've got a definition. But maybe it's better to describe it in terms of, what I do at the start of the day. I'll come back to a definition after that. So I wake up, I get dressed, I brush my teeth, and then the very first thing that I do is spend 15 minutes thinking about my day and how I should spend my time. So those 15 minutes are definitely the most productive of my entire day. I can't really imagine not using them like that. I don't need more than 15 minutes. I do normally need 15 minutes because sometimes emails have come in overnight, an idea has occurred to you overnight, and you need to take that into account along with, other entries in your calendar. So it's a little bit of work, but just 15 minutes. And then those 15 minutes lead you to have a day where it's full of what you really wanted to do, what really mattered, what you intended to do. This is what I mean by intentions. Giving yourself the space to become aware of what your intentions are, what's important to you, and then having a system for making sure that they happen. That's what it is. That's sort of my experience of it. I do that, each and every day. I do it in the morning. Some people do it the night before. But in terms of the definition, which is probably slightly less useful, but I'll give one anyway. So I describe it in terms of what, when, one, enough. What I mean by what is deciding, giving yourself the space to think through what is most important. And then when is deciding when it should start and when it should finish, not being too ambitious, but being ambitious enough with those timings. One is single tasking, just do that one thing in that slot, nothing else. And then enough is doing it to a good enough level. You're not aiming for perfection here. Perfection doesn't really exist for any of us. Do it so that it's good enough that you can share with others and move things on in your workflow or in your life, and whatever the context happens to be. So yeah, that's that's the lived experience of it as well as the definition.
Okay. Well, that seems pretty simple. And yet, in your experience and that of luminaries throughout history, Carl Jung, Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, etc., it's revolutionary, you say.
It's revolutionary in that anyone who wants to achieve a lot and feel good about doing that needs to really use their time well. And I think there's just something very fundamental about time boxing. It's working out what's important, setting a time to do it, not being distracted by anything else, and doing it to a good enough level. It's very hard, I think, to launch an argument against that. I'm going to invite you to do that, Pete. And actually, I wanted to ask you if you time box.
Challenge accepted.
Okay, so go ahead. Which of those 4 elements of the definition would you say, that's actually not that important?
Oh, no. I suppose I don't think that it's not important. I just think we can come up with lots of excuses for why, that's great for you, Mark, but I don't think that'll quite work for me. Or, yeah, that sounds cool, but... So I think there's a lot of buts, and it might be worth our time digging into a few of those.
Of course. Some people will see that and then not act on it. Of course that happens. It does require a little bit of discipline, and anything that requires even a modicum of discipline can be ignored, and will, some people will take the path of lesser immediate term resistance, of course.
Oh, yeah. No, Mark, instead, I'm just going to get this cool app. That's going to fix my time management problems. This fun little app instead.
So what's that? Well, yeah, there are some apps that will do some of this. For me, and for a lot of people, it's connecting with your intentions and making sure that you're doing the things that you want to do at the right time requires a little bit more of yourself. So you can have AI just arrange things for you, but then are you going to be happy with the order of them? And even in the processing of you're putting these tasks into your calendar, your brain starts to think about, starts to problem solve. So you're making a little bit of progress with each of them, even in the act of doing it. So yeah, there are apps and there's AI, and that's fine for some people. It's not for me. It's not the method that I advocate. I'm a little bit more old school. So, while I advocate having a digital calendar, making that sync with your various devices rather than a sort of paper-based system, AI is not something that you need for time boxing, not in my view.
Oh, certainly. Well, so then I suppose with regard to discipline, for folks who think, that sounds cool, Mark, but I just couldn't even do that because I'm a creative, flexible, fluid kind of a personality. I don't really do well when I'm tied down. What do you think to that?
Okay, so I hear this obviously sometimes. So it just wouldn't work for me. Okay, so I mean a few things to say, but the first one that occurs to me is, look, even if you're creative, you're already time boxing to some extent because you've got meetings in your calendar, right? That's unavoidable. And however creative or uncreative those meetings are, you've got those meetings, and you have to have some sort of timekeeping system to make sure that you attend those meetings more or less on time. I mean, even if you're 5-10 minutes late for most of your meetings, as some creatives might be, the meeting's there and it is important, and you're probably annoying some people by being a little bit late. So it's not like this is a brand new system that I'm suggesting you sort of force into your life. We're all creative or non-creatives, and also we're all creative in some respect. But all of us are using our calendar to spend time specifically, at the very least, with meetings. What I'm saying with time boxing is let's extend that a little bit further so that we also do it with some of the work that we do on our own so that we can achieve more. And actually with creativity specifically, achieve more creatively. You're much more likely to achieve the state of flow and get to what Cal Newport and others call deep work, scale the heights of our capability if you remove all of your distractions, if you get to a period of time where you're just working on one thing. So I would say that it actually, genuinely, I think that it supports creativity. It doesn't stifle it.
Okay. And then when it comes to discipline, if folks think, boy, Mark, I just don't think I have that level of discipline. That sounds really hardcore. That sounds Navy SEAL-esque to go from thing to next thing to next thing to next thing with perfect, rigid execution. That sounds beyond my meager willpower capabilities.
Okay. If someone said that, if you said that, for example, I would say, first of all, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be rigid. It also doesn't need to be productive thing to productive thing. One of the productive things might well be having a break, might be lying down, might be having a cold shower, might be taking your dog for a walk. It's just positive, intentional activities that by come the end of the day, and even actually during the day, are going to be really, really good for you. The other thing I'd say to such a person, or you potentially, Pete, is, well, like I said, you're already doing it to some extent. And then also, well, why don't you just try it for tomorrow? You could put into your calendar right now. Actually, if you're listening to this or watching this right now, a thing you could do to get started is put a 15-minute time box, just an event, into your calendar for tomorrow morning at a time that suits you. Obviously, you need to be awake. You need to be sort of awake enough to get it done. And in those 15 minutes, plan out some of the rest of your day. I will plan out a lot of the rest of my day because I've been doing it for, 20 years now, but do it for, a couple of hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. And once you've tried that for a few days, and I imagine you will achieve some success and you'll get into a snowball effect, a virtuous circle, you'll be doing it some more. And if it really doesn't work for you, well, then stop, but give it a try.
Yeah, well said. So you don't need to start with the entirety of the day. That indeed could feel intimidating. Understood.
Yeah, don't let perfection or completion be the enemy of the good here. Get something done. And I'm a big believer in 80-20 and pretty good and doing a decent job of things rather than sort of Navy SEALs, perfection, anything like that. I don't come from that background. I don't have that in my locker. I'm just a regular guy.
All right. Well, so let's talk about it sounds like the hardest part of all is we've got dozens, hundreds of options, things that have landed in our to-do list with varying levels of seriousness, urgency, importance. How do you begin to decide, yes, this is in fact the thing that goes on today's calendar?
Okay, so first of all, what you've just described is exactly the reason that time boxing is important. Most of us knowledge workers at any given moment could be working on 20, 30, 40, maybe 100 things. They would all be somewhat legitimate. And the existence of so many different things that we could do is stressful in itself. So you're doing one thing and 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 of the other things occur to you. That is so stressful. And that stresses me out every single day. So that's the reason that the main reason I would say that time boxing is important. It kind of, it pushes all of those other things away and focuses you on a single thing. So that's why it's important. If you have 100 items though, and how you're going to decide, I've got a trick which is very concrete, very tangible, very easy. So let's say you've got a to-do list, Pete. You've got 100 items on it and you don't know where to start. Some of those things are going to be very important. Some of them less so. It's probably accumulated over, weeks, months, maybe even years. I would say grab it, put it into a spreadsheet, go down the list and just score them very roughly on a sort of an approximation of both urgency and importance. Just sort of, merge the two together, give them a score between 0 and 10, every single one. Now, look, even if you've got 100, it's going to take a little while to do it, but it's not going to take you more than 10 minutes. This is not a huge task. So you score them all 0 to 10, and then you sort it on the score that you've given it. So the highest numbers will go to the top. And then as soon as you've done that sort, you will see immediately there's a group of tasks at the bottom that you really could just delete. And that is hugely reassuring, gratifying. It's such a relief to see the list look like that. And then there are tasks at the top that really will be super important because you've, given them an 8 or a 9 or a 10. You might want to do some further ordering of those. And that's also a huge relief because those big important items that you knew were lurking in your to-do list are being surfaced properly. So they will get your attention. So those, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever it is, items that you really had to do are going to make their way into your calendar and get done. And that is so, it really is about control, like taking control of your life by having a system to understand what is most important and get it done. This is a specific tactic for dealing with a long to-do list. And then you can do that even, every so often when you've only got 20 items. It also works. It sounds, I don't know, maybe for some people it sounds a little bit much to put it in the spreadsheet, but much better that than just leaving it there to, gather dust and bother you every so often. And occasionally, you're going to be getting fines because you haven't dealt with, some tax issue or responded to some letter. So it's literally costly, financially costly to not address it and not address it in some kind of systemic, positive, repeatable way.
Yeah. Well, I love that so much. And you mentioned 80-20 and so much what you said there, I'm vibing with a ton. And the phrase somewhat legitimate, I think is, so perfect for the items that hang out in our to-do list. They are they're somewhat legitimate. And yet, Vilfredo Pareto would say they are not the vital few of the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, find the vital few. Find the vital few and do those.
And it is such relief, you're right, to see have a huge list and to see many of them drop off. It's like the fastest way to get something off of your to-do list is to decide thoughtfully, thoroughly, not to do it. Hey, that's off my to-do list, and legitimately so.
Exactly. Yes, it's basically pruning. And there is no more efficient way of pruning a list than via a spreadsheet. So although spreadsheet is not officially part of time boxing, it's a very effective method for getting to the vital few, as you put it.
So I would like to hear a little bit about some of those questions by which we might use to determine what is calendar worthy. And so vital few 80-20 type things suggest that vital few activities produce 16 times the output per unit of input than trivial many items. So there's that. I also love the one thing question. We had Jay Papasan on the show earlier. What's the one thing such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary. So that's a huge win in terms of a prioritizer. We had Greg McEwen talking essentialism in terms of like raising your standard, like cleaning out your closet, not from might this someday be useful? No, low standard to does this spark joy? Marie Kondo style, high standard. So any other sort of uber powerful questions that are super handy in the universe of prioritizing?
Yeah. Well, the main one for me is actually the emotional response that you have to a specific item. So as you're going through the list, you will feel stressed, or you have some sort of emotional response to some, and to some you just will have the absolute opposite. What I'm suggesting is that where you have a stronger emotional response, in general, you're going to want to action those. So I think that's a proxy for importance, for what matters to you, that comes from your soul, actually. And it's you don't really need to ask any other questions. It's just, what is your response to this particular item?
And when you say strong emotional response, is it either positive or negative? Is a go signal for action?
No, definitely. It might well be negative. I mean, look, for example, let's say a tax return. Tax return for most people is not going to be hugely positive, but that doesn't mean that you leave that and let's find the good stuff. No, what I'm saying is that, yeah, any kind of strong response probably means that either, because you really want to do it, because you're enthusiastic about it. In general, we don't need help with those sorts of tasks. So it's actually more the ones where you have some sort of negative response. And to just dwell on that particular example, because that's something that a lot of people feel when it comes to that time of year, getting something like a tax return back to whoever needs to see it. The problem with not addressing it is that you just die a thousand deaths instead. You will need to do it in the end, and maybe you incur a fee as well if you go beyond whatever the deadline is. But even if you hit the deadline, if you worry about it 17 times before you submit it, well, why have you done that? Much better to confront it, be front-footed, and get the thing done, on your terms, proactively. I use the word agency a lot with Timeboxing. It's taking back your agency. You be in control. Don't let the world happen to you. You decide what needs to happen and when it's going to happen, and get it done.
Yeah, die a thousand deaths or sigh a thousand.
Yeah.
Baby tomorrow.
Or Timebox instead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we got some thoughts on how to choose what goes in on this day's calendar. Do you have some pro tips on how do I think about how long should that thing take? How long should I work in a bout of work, rest breaks? What are some of the pro tips to designing a day to be a masterpiece?
Well, exactly. It is like that. You're sort of like you're an architect, you're designing, you're like an alchemist of the experience that you're going to have that day. And the ordering matters. I mean, if you think, let's say you've got to write, I don't know, a summary of a podcast, right? That's one of your tasks. And you also want to go to the gym. Now, for some people, it will make a lot of sense to go to the gym first and then do the write-up. And for others, it will be the other way around. It really depends on how your brain works, how your mood is, what energy you have, maybe some of the logistical, the contextual elements of your day. But the order really matters. So yeah, build in breaks, consider that the order matters. I mean, for me, for example, when I've got difficult things to think about, I like to have some exercise built in to give me a chance to think about them in a diffusive way. So I can just be a little bit more relaxed and have sort of answers come to me while I'm doing some hard or semi-hard exercise. So yeah, build in some breaks, build in also some slack. If you don't have any slack and you go like you were saying earlier, Pete, from thing to thing to thing, if anything breaks or anything takes a tiny bit longer and you haven't responded to it, then you can have a negative cascading effect. So build in some slack, build in some breaks. I mean, to be a little bit more specific, look, it varies from person to person, but for me, every couple of hours, I will need 10, 15 minutes, normally 15 minutes of a break. And that could be anything, just to, get a drink, take the dog for a walk, have a shower, meditate, close my eyes. There are a lot of ways of having a break that aren't just to default to the canteen or the kitchen and eat something that's not that healthy for you. So with breaks, there's a bit of an art to it as well. And think a little bit more about what's going to refresh you and give you energy. But I would say that there's no hard and fast rules about how much time or how many breaks you should take. It's really just coming back to that word intention. What works for you? Think hard about what works for you. You can take as a guideline, how I spend my day. And in the book, I've got some screenshots of how that is, but that won't necessarily be, that way, done that way won't be for everyone. The point is to have a system like Timeboxing, which is super flexible and can accommodate different attitudes to different needs for taking breaks and and having slack and what you do in those times.
Okay, very good. And then when we're actually doing the calendaring, do you have any pro tips in terms of 15-minute increments or color coding or anything that makes this go better?
Both of those. For sure. So, 15 minutes. So I have 3 sizes of time box. And again, other people can take a different view and it is flexible to having different denominations. But my denominations are 15 minutes, 30 and 60. It's nice and easy. There's only 3 sizes. So I don't have to spend long thinking, is this a 48-minute task or a 17-minute task or whatever? It's just, look at small, medium, large. And I know what small, medium, large are. They also stack nicely up to an hour. There's obviously 15s going to 60, so there's 30. And then you asked about color coding. Well, I do color code my calendar. And this is to get a handle on, quite literally get a view, a literal view of the balance of my life. So I have 5 different areas of my life at the moment. So there's one business that I advise, another business that I advise, things that are for me, to do with my soul and my well-being. And then there's speculative activities as well. So I've got a few different categories of my life that I've deemed to be important for me right now. Okay, so if I color code the items as they go into the calendar, I can see at a glance at the end of a week how much time I've spent on each of these areas. And actually the way that both Google and Microsoft do calendars now, they'll toss it up for you. So they're telling you, well, you're spending 30% of your time on your, as I put it, soul. Well, is that good or not good? But if you have the data, then you can make a decision about adjusting it up or down. So color coding sounds a little bit trivial. Almost absurd, but there's actually very good reason for doing it. I also, Pete, use emojis in my time boxes. Why do I do that? Probably not for a very good reason. It just gives me I see time boxing as sending your future self a message, a little bit of guidance, so that when that future self is distracted and stressed by the inevitable difficulties of a working day, you have that line back to when you were in a calmer moment, when you were a bit wiser, when things were more still. Oh yeah, that's the thing that I should do. How's that relevant to emojis? Well, it's a little bit tongue in cheek. It's a little bit, I don't know, like a wink or a hug. It's an affectionate message from my former less stressed self to my later more stressed self. And so I put them in. That it definitely is an optional feature of time boxing.
That's fun. And what's cool about emojis is they can be right in the line of the text as opposed to a separate image thing, which is all weird and complicated and hard to shove into a calendar software.
Yeah, definitely. And it is for me. It's right before the text that I put it. Yeah.
I'm also a fan of the Unicode symbol for a checkbox in the calendar. That feels nice. I just have that copy pasted like, oh, and then that happened. Mission accomplished. Because that's one of the most satisfying things about a to-do list is the checking them off. I can still have that in my calendar too.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds, Pete, like you time box and you are using some of the higher arts of time boxing as we speak, as you live.
Well, Mark, tell me any final things you want to make sure to mention before we hear about some of your favorite things.
Sure. A couple of things that occur to me. One is just the word time itself. So this is a not very well-known fact, but time is the most commonly used noun in the whole of the English language, but not just the English language. If you look at Spanish, if you look at German, if you look at Chinese, I think as well, and many others. So it's super, super common. And so like I was saying at the top at the start of our conversation, it is surprising that people don't give it even more time and attention than they do. So that is just a fact I'll sort of park with people. The other one I want to say is sometimes you've got a plan with someone, like a dinner, and dinner gets cancelled. And there's nothing nicer than that feeling when you suddenly have some time in your calendar, but it's very easy to waste, especially with, social media and our phones and what have you. There's a mnemonic which has really gone down well, actually, since the book came out. This isn't even in the book, but it's Mr. Elf, Mr. Elf. So the M is for meditation, R is for reading, E is for exercise, L for learning, F for friends and family. This isn't an exhaustive list, but it's a very, very useful list to just run through. If I've got a bit of time and I want to use it well, here's a reminder of some of the things that are probably going to be important, could well be important to me. And why not do that with your time rather than Netflix or Instagram or Snap or whatever it is. So yeah, I want to get Mr. Elf into the ears of the people that are listening and watching.
Big thanks to Marc for sharing his wisdom with us. Big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Quince. If summer gives you that itch to update the wardrobe, Quince is a fantastic resource. Their clothes are remarkable in that they're lightweight, timeless, luxurious, and affordable. They got goods like European linen shorts and dresses from $30, luxurious swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. Quince works directly with top artisans to cut out middlemen and provide luxury without the markup. Quince also only works with ethical factories and premium materials. I have some Quince underwear, and I must say it is just about my favorite. The look and feel of them is top quality without costing top dollar. Give your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/awesome for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/awesome for free shipping and that full year return. Quince.com/awesome. One sponsor to check out is Plod. Plod is an AI wearable gadget that takes notes of meetings and calls. With Plod, you don't have to take notes and make summaries anymore. It'll do it for you. This tiny AI gadget is the perfect accessory for your phone. It takes notes, instantly generates transcripts, summarizes critical points and action items, so you can stay focused without frantic note-taking. Personally, I was really impressed with my Plod. It's about the size of 2 credit cards stacked on top of each other, super tiny. The setup and Bluetooth pairing was about the quickest, most seamless setup of a device with its app that I've ever experienced. And I was really impressed at how a device this tiny has acceptable audio quality and battery life. Their transcriptions I found were super accurate and the AI insights were sensible. So you talk and Plod handles the rest. If you're ready to work smarter, type PLAUD into Google and get a discount with my code AWESOME. That's PLAUD. One sponsor to check out is Strawberry.me Career Coaching. Having real clarity and direction can make or break your career. If it seems like you're putting in the work but not seeing your career take off, some coaching might be just the ticket. Strawberry.me matches you with certified career coaches who help you gain clarity on what you really want next in your career, develop a results-driven strategy, and stay accountable. And they can also help you flourish beyond career issues. I had a fantastic session with my coach, Brett, about handling stress from so many responsibilities in so many areas. He was fun. He was wise. He just really got me. We had some laughs and a good time and a good rapport. And he gave me an exercise that has been so quick and so effective for me. I've been doing it every day. So if you're ready to take control and build momentum in your career, go to strawberry.me/awesome to claim your $50 credit. That's strawberry.me/awesome. Because awesome careers don't just happen, you make them happen. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Now, could you share a favorite quote? Something you find inspiring?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. There's a bunch of quotes, epigraphs in the book at the start of each chapter, and one of them, I mean, I like all of them, obviously, because I've chosen them. But there's one from Lady Gaga that I really like and speaks to, I think, what's the most important about one of the most important things about life and about this system. So the quote is, "I am my own sanctuary and can be reborn as many times as I choose throughout my life." To me, it's about agency and hope and truth. And while it's nice to be quoting Plato and Socrates and Nietzsche in the book too, it's also nice to give Lady Gaga some extra attention.
All right. And a favorite study or experiment or piece of research?
Yeah, we didn't cover this earlier when you were asking about studies and your interest here. There was a study into what's called implementation intentions. If you just Google implementation intentions, you'll see what these basically said was that if you decide when you're going to do something, what you're going to do, and when you do it, you're 2.5 times more likely to get something done. You're something like 90% likely to get it done versus 30-something%. It's been replicated more recently in studies. And of course, that kind of encapsulates exactly what I'm trying to get at with timeboxing. So, and actually, when you were asking me earlier, well, what about the people that just aren't going to do it? Well, the studies say that you really are 2.5 times more likely. So I probably should have said that back then. It basically says that timeboxing works.
Okay. And a favorite book?
I mean, the book I've read the most frequently is Lord of the Rings because it's just enjoyable. A book that moved me more recently was The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand. I enjoyed that very much. That felt a lot about freedom and, again, agency. So that resonated and was enjoyable as well. And is quite different style to Tolkien's work.
And a favorite tool?
Well, I mean, in making decisions in business or in life, actually, the 2x2 matrix is one that I default to pretty frequently. You've got an issue, you don't know how you're going to resolve it. Think about 2 of the factors involved that are distinct, and then look at high, low, or yes, no for each of them. You put that onto a 2x2, and just almost immediately, almost every time, things clarify somewhat. So yeah, the 2x2 matrix is a really useful one for me. I love the thing.
And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to resonate with folks? A Marc original soundbite?
So this is about timeboxing is mostly, an in-day activity to help you, make the most of that day. But the point is, if you keep doing it, that adds up to, a whole life of intention and purpose and meaning and what have you. So the quote is, the practice of daily intentional activity will eventually yield what almost every human being wants most, a chosen, cherished life. I think that's very nice and just touches on, like I said, meaning, something that's sort of deep and important.
Yeah. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where'd you point them?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can just put my name in. I accept requests generally there. I also have a website, marczao-sanders.com, from which there's a monthly newsletter. And you can email me and get in touch by just answering that. It's a Substack.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for someone looking to be awesome at their job?
Yeah. Don't just let life and your job just happen to you. Rediscover what you want to do, what your intentions are, and find a way to bring them into being, into your work, into your life.
Beautiful. Marc, thank you.
Pete, thank you.
Boy, I loved what Marc said right at the end, actually, with regard to the study of just how transformational this planning, implementation, intention stuff is. I couldn't resist. I found the exact journal citation, Implementation, Intentions, and Effective Goal Pursuit in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And here is a juicy quotation, if I may. Juicy quotation from a scientific journal article? Absolutely. Here it goes. Looking at the completion rate for difficult goals, we observed that without an implementation intention, as in what time and where and how you can do the thing, these goals were completed in only 22% of the cases. However, when furnished with an implementation intention, completion rate increased to 62%, nearly a tripling. Wow. That is so powerful to just go ahead, take a hard look at the tasks, the priorities, the schedule, get them into the calendar, and enjoy triple the odds of success. Sounds pretty good to me. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, please mosey on over to awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1071. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.